Greetings, y'all. Welcome to another episode of State of the Build here on the Peak Auto YouTube channel. My name's Emily Reeves, and we got a cool episode coming at you. We have Trevor from MotionAutoTV. You guys suggested him for this series, and we got him. We are going to be hearing about his all-wheel drive Civic and getting the scoop on it. What are the plans for it, and what's the history on that car? So let's send him a text. What's up, Trevor? All right, dude, we're so excited to get the scoop on the Civic. You have a lot of vehicles in the shop, and I'm really stoked that you chose to feature this car because I'm excited to hear the history on it and what your plan is. From what I've heard, you've got a lot of parts on the ground for her. Let's start with the history on this car. How long have you had it, and when did you find it, and what were the mods like back then?
Hey, Emily, how's it going? Super stoked to be over here on the Peak YouTube channel, the Peak Auto YouTube channel, and I'd like to show you guys my 1996 Honda Civic. So this thing has not always been the monster that it currently is. This thing is a K24 built engine, tranny, all-wheel drive, probably makes like 900 horsepower, runs a low 9-second pass, but that is not where it started. So I got this thing in 2014. I had a little red Honda Civic hatchback that was completely stock, and I ran across a listing on Craigslist, and it was actually of this car. It did not look like this. It was in primer. It just got held on, had a bunch of body damage. They had already been working on it, and they painted the engine bay, and it had a fully built D16, which is the single overhead cam engine that actually came in this car from the factory. So it had forged pistons, forged rods, aftermarket cylinder sleeves, a fully built head, turbo kit, some kind of cheaper eBay parts, some random injectors, random fuel pump, tons of random wiring issues and tucked harness and all kinds of stuff. And so I brought it back to the shop. We started diving into it. So did not run. So it was basically a project car. And I guess I traded that red hatchback for this thing. This was back in 2014. So brought it back to the shop. The cylinder head was off of it, and it actually pulled the threads out of the block. So got right to work on it, put a thread cert in there, pulled it out, put a time cert in there, pulled it out, ended up having to get a big cert like a year later. Keep in mind, this was like, I was doing a bunch of random projects. I had a LS swapped 240, I had a 2JZ 240, I had a Evo that I was building at the time. I had some diesel trucks that I was like playing with. And so this was just like a back corner project. It was actually back over there in the corner for a while. So then could never really get it running right. It would start and it would run and it would kind of go thump, 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 and check the timing, check the valve lash, checked a bunch of stuff. And it was just never, I don't know, never seemed like it wanted to run. And so that's where it sat there for, I think like 2 or 3 years. And then one day I said, oh, you know what? It's finally time to get started on that Civic. I'm gonna paint it, I'm gonna sell it, I'm gonna do whatever, I'm gonna K-swap it, whatever I wanted to do. I was tired of looking at it, decided to pull it down, did all the body work, refreshed all the body work, and painted it yellow. Then what we did is, it wasn't running right, so I got in contact with Brent from PFI Speed. So he said, bring it up, we'll get it all tuned up, we'll figure it out on the dyno. So buttoned up some of the wiring stuff, put a new ECU in it, put some new Deechworks injectors in it, and then we headed up to the dyno. Put it on the dyno. On the eBay Turbo, it actually popped the head gasket at like 23 pounds of boost. It was surging like crazy, made right at 400 horse. So, man, I feel like this is getting long.
A Craigslist buy, I see you. That's usually how it goes, right? We find project cars and they lead to years and years of parts investments, if you can call it an investment. I feel you. There's stories that go on forever on these cars. Okay, so after you pop the head gasket, what was the plan after that? You had to replace it, or did you go with a different power plant?
All right, so when it was on the dyno up at PFI, like I said, it had the eBay Turbo and it was just like shuddering. It was like having a hard time making 20 pounds of boost, and it was like doing some crazy stuff. Popped the head gasket. The guys over there at PFI, they actually had a JE Pro Sail, which is like what they use on all their cars. We literally pulled the cylinder head off on the dyno, swapped it on there. I had a Garrett turbo that I brought with me just in case the eBay one kind of blew, and swapped that on the dyno as well. We ended up 3 pulls later, after we got the head all fixed, it was like an hour and a half later, we had the car back and running on the dyno with a new turbo. Made 30 pounds of boost and it made 500 horsepower, which was really cool. So it was the first time I ever made that much power with a Honda. I had like a 300 horsepower one previously. But yeah, once we got back with the car, we started taking it to the track. Like I said, single cam. And every time we went to the track, we had issues with the transmission, just like the 1 to 2 shift, like the synchros weren't working. So I think the fastest I ever ended up going with the car was like a high 11-second pass. And that's just not what I wanted to do with it. So up until this point, I was really bummed with the car. But as soon as it made 500 horsepower and we're out driving it on the street, I was like, nope, like all those feelings just came back, and I was like, nope, we're keeping this car. So that led us next to kind of the next stage of this project, which is kind of where it is right here.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep up with this story. So currently as it sits, it's still got the stock style motor, right? And is it all-wheel drive yet or no? You got the car sitting there. When you first introduced it, didn't you say it had around 900 horse? So is it in its previous rendition, or does it have a different power plant now? And when did you go all-wheel drive with it? When does that combo hit the scene?
So yeah, Emily, we're kind of talking about the previous version of this thing, which had one of these in it. This is a single overhead cam valve cover that I had laying around the shop because right now it's actually swapped with this K24. But we'll get into that. So since I was stoked about the car again, I kind of wanted to build the ultimate version of a Civic. And what was that to me, or what was that I kind of think is a K-Series engine, which is probably one of the best engines of all time, like price per dollar wise. So we got a K20 out of an Acura RSX Type S, so a K20 A2. We had a Honda CR-V transmission, an all-wheel drive transmission that comes factory in a CR-V with a K-Series in it. And then I actually had to buy a 89 Honda Civic Wago van is what they call them, RT four-wheel drive, and basically pulled the rear differential and axles out of that. And I got linked up with a company called Hub City Performance. They make all-wheel drive trailing arms and a rear diff mount for that thing. So we kind of put it all together. So we had a stock K20, we had a stock manual all-wheel drive transmission, we had a Garrett 3582 turbo on it, we had the stock diff and axles in the back, we had it all hooked up, we had it running and driving. We got this thing running on an ECU master, full standalone ECU. Like I said, it was 100% stock engine, and we took this thing to the dyno, and let me have you take a guess on what happened to this thing next.
You're like, let me just throw the ball back in your court. You can guess what happened. Well, I've had motors blow up on the dyno, so I'm kind of familiar with that whole deal. So that motor said goodbye, and now how many times has that happened? So you mentioned having a pile of parts for this car. What's the upcoming plan for her? What has she got? I mean, obviously the drivetrain, as far as the all-wheel drive, sounds pretty bulletproof and tough since you had a bunch of aftermarket stuff built for it. What's the power plant going to be the next time we see this thing hit the road?
So yeah, Emily, you guessed it. It was a stock K24, took it to the dyno. I had a really small turbo on it, and it hit like 28 pounds of boost at 3,000 RPM, shot the rod literally out of it on the first pass on the dyno. So we came back, we put a bone stock K20 in it, which is a little bit smaller, went back with a little bit bigger turbo and a little bit more kind of paying attention to the boost control. And on 20 pounds, it made 610 horsepower, which was really cool. So we came back, we played around with it on the street for a little bit, and front wheel drive, it literally, that's one of the issues with Hondas is when they're front wheel drive, they just spin. You make anything over 450 horsepower and they just spin like crazy. So we put the drive shaft in it, and this thing was just an absolute animal on the street. Doesn't spin, doesn't do anything, it just goes. And it feels like you're just in like a rocket ship going for a crazy ride. And so I was playing around with some rolling anti-lag, again, stock engine, put too much torque through the engine and it shot another rod out. So we figured out the issue with that was that you can't be running that much power all-wheel drive on stock rods. So we built this engine. So now we have this K24. It has pistons, rods in it, valve springs, retainers, stock cams. We also upgraded the turbo a little bit again, and we upgraded the internals in the tranny. So right now it has this Garrett G42 72mm turbo. It has a PPG gear stack in it, so it has some dog gear, so I can do the no lift shift stuff properly. And yeah, this thing's on 38 pounds of boost, makes about 900 horsepower in its current state. But the reason it's so dusty and the reason I've been gathering parts is because at the beginning of the season, I broke it. I was doing no lift shift stuff on the street, and I actually broke the bell housing / case of the transmission. So in this box right here, I have a new transmission case. The all-wheel drive stuff is kind of hard to get a hold of, so that's why it's been so long. And then I have this intercooler. So this intercooler is 6 inches thick, and that is what kept us from running an 8-second pass. So as of right now, the fastest pass in this car is a 901 at like 156 miles an hour. And the goal was always to get it into the 8s this year in 2021. And since I broke it at the beginning of the year, it's kind of been sitting around. So we've had a lot of other stuff going on around the shop, but that's kind of the situation with it right now. My goal is to maybe get it going in the next month or so, maybe take it on Rocky Mountain Race Week next year and run in the 8s every single track. That was the goal this year, pushing it out till next year. But yeah, we've had a lot of stuff going on around the shop this year, and actually this month. We're building 2 Ford Rangers to race each other with. We have this Evo wagon that has been kind of, we basically built this thing out of an Evo and like a bone stock Lancer wagon, and then we're actually giving away this 2022 Kia Telluride. So that's another thing that we do, is we give away cars. This is our 10th car giveaway. So if you spend $1 on MotionAutoTV.com, well, every dollar you spend on MotionAutoTV.com is an automatic entry for a chance to win that thing. But yeah, that's a little update on the Civic. What do you think about this thing? Well, I guess, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? If you guys want to see another video, if you guys like this, we could go through another one of my project builds, as long as you like my rambles.
I think we can all ramble on about our various vehicles. I totally support your goal of Rocky Mountain Race Week. Those Race Week events, Drag Week and Race Week, are so much fun. I mean, when you're doing it, you're thinking like, this is crazy. Why am I putting myself through this pain? But it's such an awesome feeling to have finished and completed an event like that. So you would definitely stick out and be unique at one of those events. And I fully support that goal of doing that next year. That car is going to be gnarly. All-wheel drive with all that power and that boost going through it. Amazing. And 10 cars. The Kia is very, very nice. I got to ride in one of those when they first launched at SEMA year before last, and they are so nice. I will drop the link for your shop in the description of this video so folks can go enter to win that. And thank you so much for taking the time to toss some videos back and forth with me today. And we will see you on an upcoming episode, I'm sure. People will comment down and tell us what they thought of this. And if they want to see more, then we'll have you back. Thank you so much, Trevor. Have an awesome afternoon.
Well, hey, Emily, thank you and Peak Auto so much for having me on. If anybody wants to go check out my channel and see any of the other builds or projects, or you want me to do a breakdown of anything else, let me know. I'm happy to hop on one of these things anytime. So I hope you guys are subscribed to the Peak Auto channel for more stuff like this. Leave a comment on who, I guess, you want to see on this thing next, and we'll see you guys later.
One of the things I like most about this series is the versatility and all the different vehicles that we feature. Sorry there, Lyft. I really like seeing all the different varieties of cool cars, things that people get excited about. I'm always a fan of seeing lots of different things, random VW stuff, Datsun, Pontiac, or Holden, depending on how technical we want to get. We love all kinds of vehicles, so yeah, it's fun to see. I hope y'all enjoy it too. On future episodes, you will see us doing a walk around of our shop. Tell me what cars you guys are most interested in our shop, and maybe we'll do a state of the build on something that we have here. I look forward to seeing y'all on an upcoming episode. Thanks so much for the comments, likes, and subscribing, and we will see y'all on a future episode.